Shalom. All praise to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Double honors to elders of GMS. Much love to you, brothers. They come by to get fed. We have to watch and we have to pray. And we definitely have to keep our eyes on this news, man, because a lot of things are happening quickly. So I'm just going to jump right into the videos.
UN says this morning the number of refugees from Syria now tops 1.5 million. The U.S. and Russia, Syria's most important ally, are proposing a peace conference.
But the Russians have refused to pressure the Assad regime, and a new report indicates that Russian support for the Syrian government is not wavering. Charlie Daggett is in London. Charlie, good morning.
Good morning to you, Charlie and Nora. There are reports this morning that Russia has delivered advanced anti-ship missiles to Syria. They're reportedly a newer version of missiles that Russia has been supplying President Bashar.
And now, a lot of people don't know those missiles are nuke missiles. They could be depleted or enriched, but they have high yielding power in those missiles. That's why it's such a controversy. They don't want to tell everybody that they got shipped arms, because then the hypocrisy starts setting in a little bit. Okay? Because they're going to try to go on Iran for the same thing. You see how this is working? So Russia shipped in them high-tech nukes, and it's a deterrent. It's a deterrent because they know now that Assad has the capabilities of launching one of those things at a carrier, whatever it may seem they want to hit.
Assad's regime for years, but with better radar systems. Now, they've been described as ship killers. They raise Syria's capability to hit vessels off its coast in the event of a blockade or to attack ships used to support a no-fly zone. Now, that's specifically referring to the anti-ship missiles. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said today that Russians have made no secret of the fact they continue to supply weapons to Syria under contract and in accordance with international law. Now, this was a contract that was signed back in 2007. Raising the stakes even more, Russia has increased the number of warships in that region that patrol its own naval base in Syria. Now, this comes at a time when Secretary of State John Kerry has been working with Russian officials to assemble an international conference on Syria. Today, the UN Secretary General and the Russian Foreign Minister agreed that that should be held as soon as possible, but as yet, no date has been set. Charlie and Nora?
Charlie Daggett, thank you.
It's over to Rise.
If you want peace in Syria, you have to come to Russia. President Vladimir Putin has been playing host to an increasingly long queue of statesmen trying to stop the bloodshed. The latest to arrive is the UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon. So far, though, the Russian leader has shown no sign of abandoning Bashar al-Assad. He will not sacrifice such a vital strategic partnership, no matter what weight of international pressure is applied.
If nobody need you, nobody visit you. If it's a long waiting list of top-level politicians, it means that your policy is right. So, it means that the Russian foreign policy in the Middle East, in the case of Syria, is absolutely reasonable.
The Russians are rigidly opposed to any armed intervention by the West in Syria. They fear if extremists gain the upper hand there, it would destabilize their own volatile borders in the North Caucasus. There might only be a low-level conflict right now in Dagestan, a neighbor of Chechnya, but it could ignite into an all-out war if Syria descends into anarchy. They're also worried about losing their only naval foothold in the Mediterranean, the Syrian port of Tartus. A Russian fleet of warships from Vladivostok is about to move through the Suez Canal to take up station in the sea for the first time since the Cold War. Putin's ambitions are growing. By protecting the Syrian president.
This is quick scripture, Ezekiel 38:4, and it says, "And I will turn thee back." Who's thee? It's talking about Russia, Gog and Magog. Okay, turning back to the old Soviet Union when they was once at their non-compliance to the U.S. ways. The reason they have so much the reason they're so prideful now is because they've gained back their power. they took enough so-called aid and help from the outside world to where now they can establish their strength and pretty much set a foothold on Syria and say this is the line. Okay? And it says, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thy armies, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with buckler and shield, and all of them handling swords. Persia, which is Iran, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Salakia. Alright, so the Most High is turning them back. That's why it says that those ships have not been in the Mediterranean since the Cold War. So that's back to where the Cold War was at.
The president has forced those in search of peace in Syria to come to him. But just how much diplomatic traction does Vladimir Putin have left with Damascus? If the hopes for an international peace conference are not realized, Syria could become the worst nightmare for both Russia and the West. A nightmare its people are already living every day. David Chater, Al Jazeera, Moscow.
That these cases that were reported this morning have been previously reported. We're not aware of new shipments of these specific missiles. We're not aware of new shipments.
It's at the very least an unfortunate decision that will embolden the regime and prolong the suffering. So it's ill-timed and very unfortunate.
General Dempsey made it very clear that on the specific areas, the missiles, whatever else is involved with the Russians does not help. It makes it more dangerous.
Pentagon briefing about an hour and a half, 2 hours after the state briefing on specific missiles from Russia to Syria. We're back with the panel on the Friday lightning round. Charles.
Keystone Cops. State Department says nothing here. Defense Department says this is important. The Russians
like a smuck.
High-tech missiles into Syria. And then the response of the Defense Department, well, this isn't helpful. Is that all you can say? This is the Russians stepping all over the so-called cooperation that we are getting. We just sent our Secretary of State into Moscow to negotiate on this. This is a slap in the face. They're equipping openly, as we heard earlier on the show, the foreign minister of Russia saying, of course we're sending arms into Syria, which of course is under an embargo. And now they have a fleet of ships offshore. That used to be a Mediterranean, used to be an American lake. It's now a Soviet lake.
And the CIA,
a Russian lake.
Yeah. The CIA
exactly in that Soviet comment. Did. You see how he slipped in that Soviet comment? Because they know what time it is, man. You know, but Jake